This is Dr. Toby Capwell, curator, author, historical advisor, and all-round expert on historical arms and armor. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're going over a selection of armor sets, both human and otherwise, from the latest RPG epic, Crimson Desert.
Keep your weapon sheathed, and we'll get on just fine.
The crinnet is the articulated defense for the horse's neck. The crest of the neck. Very tricky to get right. And it just so happens that I've brought one along.
A horse?
No, a crinnet.
You brought a horse to my house.
Here's a real crinnet. And you can compare it to what's in the game. They've even almost got the number of plates right. Have we talked about dog armor before? There is a plate dog armor surviving in Madrid, at the Royal Armory in Madrid. What is going on?
I mean, you've got to keep your little guys protected.
This is mad. It's gone bonkers. The game has just lost its mind.
There is an hour-long director's cut edition of this episode over on our Patreon, which also includes some armor of Crimson Desert's companions, so be sure to check that out. Link in the description below. We have more videos featuring Toby to come, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on those. And Crimson Desert has a ton of absolutely mad pieces of armor, so let us know if you'd like to see us cover this game again in the future. Make sure you check out the links in the description below to pick up Toby's new book, An Armorer's Album. But without further ado, we hope you enjoyed the episode, and now it's over to Toby.
Come, say your farewells.
This is obviously fantasy. There are lots of different flavors of fantasy, of course. Different people like their fantasy to come in different types: high fantasy, low fantasy, fantasy derived from reality. I gather this game is very popular, but it doesn't have any obvious connection with anything real, apart from that penannular brooch that the smaller guy is wearing. The penannular brooch, holding his cloak together, perfectly historical, but that's about it. He's interestingly, the armor on the body armor that the smaller guy is wearing is actually, that typology has an interesting history. Not because it's real, because it isn't, it won't work and it's made up, but the misconception of the existence of a type of armor where you take a cloth or a leather garment and then you painstakingly and very expensively forge loads of these big iron rings or discs with a hole through and then sew them time intensively onto this leather garment for no obvious reason, because that won't protect you really at all. Still, the idea of such an armor goes quite far back, at least to the 19th century. And as far as I can tell, the idea of this kind of iron disc armor is based on a misconception or a misreading or a misinterpretation of the Baya tapestry. This is not a tapestry, it's an embroidery made at the end of the 11th century. And there are various embroiderers' conventions for representing mail armor. The mail, metal fabric made of interlocking links of iron or later steel. And in the tapestry, they use different conventions, but one of the ways they show mail predominantly in the battle scene, which takes up about half of the total work, they just show you circles that are abutted next to each other. You're going to see this thing up on the wall of a cathedral. Nobody's treating this as a photograph or even a very realistic depiction of anything. It's a sequential narrative artwork. It's a comic, right? So it has to tell its visual story, but it's not literal. But 19th century antiquarians looked at the tapestry and they saw these big circles on the body of the figures in the Baya tapestry. And they thought, they took it really literally. And they said, those must be big circles of iron sewn on edge to edge. Now think about that, folks. You sew your circles on separately next to each other. They're gonna do next to nothing for you. They're not gonna stop anything stabbing you. They might have a superficial laceration protection, but really not very good, balanced against the immense amount of work it is to make something like this. It's sort of nonsensical. But ever since the 19th century, when it was recorded in a number of encyclopedias of costume, it's been picked up, and then artists saw artists making depictions of medieval warriors of this period, started painting these disc armors, whatever you want to call them, and then they end up in Hollywood, and then they end up in video games. But if I was him, I'd wear something else.
So this is the same character in one of the later armor sets called the Grey Wolf set.
I don't want to be rude about this because, I know people like this game. It's popular. It's probably fun to play. Apart from the presence of buckles, I can't see anything that relates to anything real here. That's like nothing that any real person would ever make. When I look at design, even if it's fantasy, I want to understand why the character is wearing what they're wearing. There has to be some kind of rationale behind it, even if it's because it's supposed to protect them when a dragon bites them or whatever, right? There's got to be something. And I like to see some kind of design consistency, like there's a culture behind this that has certain natural resources, certain technical skills, a certain artistic and aesthetic environment that it's working in. This just feels kind of random to me.
This is from the faction is like north. If you're in the northern reaches of the continent, so it's colder. That's one of the things that the game does play with. Your armor choice is sometimes dictated by the environment that you're using it in. If you're going somewhere hot, it needs to be lighter. We'll see later, fighting in full plate in the desert. You feel those stamina draining heat effects. And the metal is very shiny in this game.
Yeah, but it's not got any finish. It's like someone roughly hammered it and then stuck it on a polishing wheel without trying to planish it or take out the dents or marks or even refine the form. I mean, that pauldron got polished before it was even half finished. The Vikings were good metal workers. They refined their forms. For the metal that they were working, they did a nice job. You can't tell me it looks northern because the metal work is rough and crappy. I don't buy it.
And I should point out that you are more than human in this game.
Oh, yeah?
So you are supernatural in many ways. And the combat plays with that, as you can probably tell. This is not how a normal human might fight, and there's a guy turning into a bear.
Yeah, that's evocative of Viking berserkers, wearing animal skins and playing with the werewolf or man-bear mythology. It's good to see that his shield is actually doing something. I'll give them that. You look at him, he holds his shield in front of his body most of the time, and you actually see opponents' blows landing on the shield, and he's using the shield more effectively than in most games, where as soon as they move, the shield goes behind them like a fencer or something. It's nice to see the shield in there doing some kind of a job.
So yeah, there's a whole unarmed sort of wrestling, grappling, fighting tree as well, or fighting style, which includes what I believe to be like modern wrestling moves, like the RKO.
Oh yeah.
But would a medieval knight be expected to be able to fight in hand-to-hand? Was there like hand-to-hand martial arts that was taught?
Absolutely. I'm organizing a seminar in a couple of weeks where we're teaching. We're focusing specifically on an Italian fight master of the early 15th century, Fiore de Libri, who wrote a book called The Flos Duellatorum, The Flower of Battle. And he talks about armored fighting with the long sword and the axe, but he does a lot of unarmed, a lot of basic grappling, wrestling. It's the basis of everything. It's the basis, and immediately graduating to dagger fighting. Of course, if you can't fight with your hands, you can't really do anything else. And you look at a lot of late medieval and Renaissance wrestling and grappling techniques, and you show that to any modern mixed martial artist or Aikido practitioner, they'll all recognize stuff in there. It's all basically the same idea. You twist your opponent's wrist this way, he goes that way. You twist his wrist that way, he goes this way. You know, you do this with the elbow, he has to do this, you know?
I'm just imagining an English knight clotheslining a Frenchman at this point now.
Oh, they had a lot of training in that. They'd start that training as 4 or 5 year olds.
So they'd learn grappling, wrestling, hand-to-hand combat before.
You can do that with kids and get them going and be fairly sure they're not going to murder each other. You know, maybe you don't want to give them pole axes straight away, right? But start kids off with grappling and unarmed combat. My kids started when they were 5. It's a long-term, experiment I'm running. So far, my 11-year-old is shooting he's the better longbowman of the two. The 14-year-old got bored with shooting, but 14-year-old is a much better mixed martial artist. He's fighting in tournaments now and things, so.
So one of the powers you have is a sort of grappling, a magic grapple that you can throw into the distance and
All right.
grapple on stuff.
Cool to see an anatomically plausible dragon, that has one pair of 4 limbs that act as the wings. Lots of fantasy dragons have 6 limbs, which never really seemed quite right to me.
Is that what the difference between a wyvern and a dragon? One of them has 6 limbs, one of them has 4.
In heraldry,
that's
considered a difference, yeah. But in heraldry, they just need differences so they can be clear about the terminology. So like, it's a lion when it's looking this way, and it's a leopard when it's looking that way. There's a lot of things like that. I wouldn't take heraldic terms as representative of reality, if we can call it that. And the kind of spatulate tail is neat because that suggests that it's working like an aeronautical tail. It has a function. I like their flora and fauna better than their armor. It's a beautiful world. The flora and the fauna are good. The armor needs some work.
If you want even more breakdowns from Dr. Capwell, then be sure to check out our Patreon. Over there, you can find the hour-long director's cut of this episode, but you'll also get over 70 extended director's cut episodes from a variety of experts and even more Patreon-exclusive content and EXP Discord access. Becoming an EXP patron helps to support the channel and allows us to continue making cool content like this. Every single patron, every single piece of merch sold goes a huge way towards supporting the channel, but whether you watch along here on YouTube or join us over on the Patreon, I want to say thank you for watching, thank you for being part of this journey, and now I'll get back to the video. So this is one of the first suits of armor you might expect to get access to when you're playing the game?
You know what I'm gonna stop. You know what I'm gonna say here, aren't you?
That there's no neck protection.
How'd you guess?
That's the first thing I thought when I put it on. I was like, Toby's gonna say something about neck protection here.
I mean, the helm is the fully enclosed head protection, knightly head protection that develops in the early 13th century and endures until the middle of the 14th century. It's quite a successful design. It endures for quite a long period, which is indicative of its success. The whole concept of the helm, where it's one thing, like a barrel that drops down over your head, it all derives from the need to protect the face in certain situations. A lot of times, most fighting men of any period you care to look at fight open-faced, because the benefits of being open-faced, visibility, field of vision, ventilation, the ability to communicate, all of that, the benefits of being open-faced outweigh the risk. And only in very particular fighting circumstances does that become unacceptable, and you've got to have something covering your face. And that in Europe is motivated primarily by knightly heavy cavalry learning to use the couched lance, striking each other in the face. They gotta have face protection. So they grow these plate masks. They're called masks in the 12th and early 13th century sources. The masked helm. It's the helmet with a face guard. And then that grows round as this guy has to cover the whole head. But the point is, for present purposes, that you only wear that helm covering the face as your final augmentation, when the whole rest of you is covered and really well protected. There is no point and there is no rationale anywhere that I can see to be wearing a helm like that when your neck and your throat is totally exposed. You're removing you're reducing your ventilation, you're restricting your field of vision for really no benefit because your throat's wide open. You're not getting any benefit really of protecting your face if your throat's right there. I know I bang on about throat protection a lot, but that's because it's really, really important. And you sort of blow the whole visual show here. The story that the visuals are telling just kind of falls down if there isn't an inherent rationale in the equipment. And I'm not disrespecting the game. If you're having a good time with this game, I'm happy for you. But what I'm saying is, if it's written well and it's conceived well, then this is a game, this is a story that deserves design commensurate with the quality of the production in other areas. And, you know, I'm not seeing it here.
All inside of that demon must be purged.
That's a little more interesting with the sort of the woven armor. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of like the woven coconut fiber armor that the Kiribati people in Micronesia made. You know, when you're a warrior culture and your only natural resources are fish and coconuts, you come up with some pretty amazing stuff. And making a complete armor out of woven coconut fiber with, you know, pufferfish, hardened pufferfish skin helmets and swords made of, you know, coconut wood edged with shark's teeth. Pretty cool.
The faction that this guy's the Reed Devil is boss of also reminded me of sort of medieval beekeeping outfits. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. After I thought that, upon exploring the game some more, I found a beekeeping suit.
Nice call. Yeah,
that was recreated. This was a tricky fight, but what was quite cool is as you're swinging your sword through this field, the grass will be cut, so you'll be able to clear your own space. Because when the enemy's fighting in the tall grass, I did find it quite difficult to read his moves. He was using the grass to hide where his sword hand was.
That's neat.
Are you a cat person or a dog person?
Cat person.
Okay, well, we've got both.
Yeah. Have we talked about dog armor before?
I think we've
gotten to the point when I'm wondering what we've talked about.
Let's talk about it again.
Dog armor is a real thing for hounds, specifically boar hounds. For the hounds in the pack that have to get close and actually kill the boar in boar hunt. You know, boar's tusks. Boars are incredibly dangerous. There are lots of depictions of boar hounds with armor. It's usually padded textile armor or armor that's reinforced with lots and lots and lots of stitching. But there is a plate dog armor surviving in Madrid at the Royal Armory in Madrid. Or the dog helmet in Madrid works more like a horse's chevron, you know, because of the nature of the animal's head. They can't wear a human helmet with a chin strap because, you know, they don't really have a chin in the same way. But is that a musketeer? What has happened in the game? What is going on?
I mean, you've got to keep your little guys protected.
This is mad. It's gone bonkers. The game has just lost its mind. Are you doing this to kind of just confuse me now? What is this? You know, there is actually a friend of mine named Jeff DeBurr. He's a Canadian artist, and he makes cat armor and dog armor and armor for mice.
I've seen the mice armor ones.
Yes, he's done some pretty interesting cat armors in different styles.
They look incredible.
Sutton Hoo armor for an animal, and he's very it's an artist's concept. He doesn't make it to be actually worn by cats and dogs, although he did tell me once that an Asian TV company bought one of his cat armors, like for a samurai cat, and then on live television tried to put a cat in it, and it did not go well.
Cats, they don't have the patience for that sort of thing.
You can't give them baths, and you can't put them in armor.
But these animals will accompany you into battle, so you want to make sure they're looked after.
They're kind of blowing the conceit with the helmets. I could almost go with this if they had more plausible helmets that didn't look like Shrek. I mean, the cat's not going to tolerate its ears getting rumpled, apart from anything else. This is like the comfort animal interlude.
Yeah, something wholesome in this grim world.
Hey, that bulldog should be wearing English armor. It's got a bow. What's a dog gonna do with a bow? Unless he's carrying it for somebody else.
That was my interpretation, that it was there so, the bow was accessible rather than him trying to fire it.
Okay, I'm not sure I can take much more of this. Can we move on?
We can.
I think I've said what I can say here.
So this is called the Fallen Kingdom armor set. I don't know if it was, well, we'll see what you think, but I thought there was maybe some nods to Kingdom of England in some of the iconography.
I'm just thinking of the old ITV Robin Hood with Herne the Hunter here.
But it's a fantasy realm, but they have a lion and a fleur-de-lis.
Just whatever. Just throw it all in there. It's like, put it all in a blender, and here's your armor milkshake.
Would sort of knights of status wear jewelry on the outside of their armor? Because you can see some of them wearing rings on the gauntlets. There's brooches on this guy.
A bit. I mean, mainly if you're a high status person in armor, you just decorate the armor. The armor is your full body jewelry. And the armor is the surface onto which you can attach all kinds of decoration. There's plenty of examples of very wealthy dukes and kings and emperors wearing, precious stones in settings and pearls on their armor. Gilding, obviously, engraved and gilded silver borders, gilt silver or gilt copper alloy. Knights who had an immediate affinity with kings in England could wear the royal livery collar in battle over their armor, and that's a big chunk of silver and gilded metal with, various royal devices on it. So yeah, I guess the answer to your question is yes, to some extent.
Is there any historical wearing of animal heads? Is that a historical thing? Maybe not elk. That strikes me as a grab risk. You talk about horned helmets. This is potentially even more hold points to control the enemy's head. But other than, you mentioned the berserkers, would animal heads be a thing?
Well, you've got certain specialized Roman troops, standard bearers and things that wear the lion skins or the bear or the wolf, depending on their rank and position in an army, a Roman, formation. Looking at the way he's gotten up here, wearing an actual animal head. That's the Roman thing is the thing that jumps to mind. All of this is about the human being in its natural state, being aware of its inherent vulnerability. We don't have a thick hide. We don't have claws. We don't have big sharp teeth. We look at the natural world, bears, lions, crocodiles, etc. And in our natural environment, there are creatures, there are powers in the natural world that are greater than us. And we feel our vulnerability, and thus we desire to take it for ourselves. And there's always this relationship between, predator and prey, between the hunter and the hunted, that when you hunt an animal, you take on its power and its identity. And certainly, if you've killed a bear just because you need to survive the winter and protect yourself against hypothermia, and that's your only concern for going up against this monster, the fact that you are then wearing a bear's skin changes the way the world looks at you. And you have taken on a bear-like identity, because how could a weaker creature kill something greater? A huge consequence has to have a huge cause. I mean, it isn't the case in reality, it's what's going on in people's heads. it's about that empowerment, and the human relationship to the natural world. And that's a theme that runs right through the sort of medieval and Renaissance stuff that I tend to study. Unyielding warrior. Oh, a Gunshield. Those are real, and that's actually not that bad of a model. Henry VIII had a bunch of these Gunshields made for his arsenal, and a number of them survive. Sorry, now I'm distracted by his ridiculous helmet. You know where they've gotten that? Just stop that for a second. Look, see the swirly things on the side of his head? That has been inspired directly by a particular helmet in the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna. It's an armor that was made in North Germany in the costume style. It's got a big steel skirt and sort of puffed and slashed style arm defenses. And it's got a helmet that's got a sort of goblin's nose and whirly things on the sides of the head. It's a parade helmet of some kind. And they've seen that on the internet, and they've taken some of it, but then departed somewhere else with the rest of it. And interestingly, there's a whole school of 19th century fakes based on this helmet that was made for Albrecht of Brandenburg, kind of a prominent northern nobleman in the sort of the Habsburg court in the 16th century. And there's a whole school of fakery of this famous goblin helmet, where they extend the nose, and the nose becomes more and more ridiculous and less practical. No, there are plenty of real fighting helmets that have mask visors, and some of them with noses, but they always have to keep practicality in mind. A bit of a nose is fine, but a nose like that, you would never want to stick that on your face, because you're giving your opponent a handle to grab your head and do something bad to you. So again, I know this is fantasy, and don't be a pedant, Toby, but a nose to that extent is not practical. A little nose, fine. Big nose on armor, not so good.
The Gunshield is one of the things that I found later into the game, and you can actually shoot it in combat. You let a little sort of shotgun blast.
Yeah, I know, the Gunshields are a real thing. What they've missed out on the Gunshield, though, they've missed something important, which is, as far as I can see, they've missed it out, the viewport.
Yeah. You're
holding this thing in front of your face, you need something to look out of, and they've missed that bit.
So shooting the Gunshield's less of a conscious aim and shoot thing. After a number of attacks, you can sort of parry and bash people away with it, and you'll shoot during that. You're not hiding behind it and shooting it. So it's not being used in a way that a Gunshield might in reality. But it's cool that it's in there. It's one of the things that I was able to pick up on straight away, saying, I know that's a real thing.
So we've already established that they do animals quite well in this game, comparatively speaking. And now they've actually done a much better job with the horse's armor than they've done with any human armor so far. I mean, it's not quite right, but it's pretty close to a perfectly functional, complete steel armor for a horse. Nowhere else in this game have they gotten articulation right. The articulation of the man's armor is virtually almost non-functional, but on the horse, they've got the crinnet right. You see the crinnet? The crinnet is the articulated defense for the horse's neck. The back, the crest of the neck.
Okay.
Very tricky to get right. And it just so happens that I've brought one along.
A horse?
No, a crinnet.
You brought a horse to my house.
Here's a real crinnet. And you can compare it to what's in the game. They've even almost got the number of plates right. And one of the things perhaps they've observed, it almost looks like they have, is that when the horse is just stood there, doing nothing in particular, the plates of the crinnet should be in a state of partial compression, so that the thing has the capacity to move with the horse's movements. When it's fully extended, this is not how it sits on the horse's neck, because the horse's neck isn't that long. It's sitting in a state of semi-compression. It can go further if it needs to, compressing on one side, extending on the other side. The whole thing is lined, so it's nice and comfy for the horse to wear. And it's all working on internal leathers, just like the ligaments and muscles that would make an exoskeleton of a crustacean or something work. But this is mine, and they've actually done something that looks a bit like reality there. See, look, the horse is moving its head, and the plates are moving the way they almost should. You've got a nice larger, crupper plate for the hindquarters. They've got a pectoral. That's a perfectly respectable horse armor. It's inconsistency I can't abide. Whatever you're going to do it consistently. And one thing they understand here is that in mounted combat, your ability to turn quickly is essential. If your opponent can turn faster than you, he wins. He's even got almost a respectable saddle.
So I'll gallop past these guys and try and quick turn to come back and attack them.
Are those track marks?
Yeah, from the drift. So you asked for weirder armor.
Frostcursed armor.
More fantastical armor.
Did I ask for that? I don't remember asking for that.
There's a very heavy death motif, if you hadn't caught that. I know some historical armors had a bit of a death motif or a skull motif, right? But maybe not this.
Not really. If they have any sort of expressive mask, it's either an animal or a human face. There's no skull helmets.
Is the Savoyard a skull, or is that
the sort of Totenkopf helmets of the 17th century. That's vaguely skull-like. But you can't, it's not like it's got teeth or anything. It's just vaguely scary looking. And the one that if you see one of those Savoyard helmets that looks literally like a modeled skull, it's probably a fake or a modern one. They're usually just kind of impressionistic things with weird eyes that just kind of look freaky, but they're not representing anything in particular most of the time, off the top of my head.
I didn't know, but is that supposed to be the sun in splendor on the back of that shield? Or a version of?
I don't know. It looks more, maybe that's what, it doesn't look very splendorous, The suns in splendor usually have long radiating rays. That looks a bit more like the moon from A Trip to the Moon, where it gets the cannon shell spaceship in the eye. That's what it reminds me of there. Yeah, the sticky out bits. People love sticky out bits on fantasy armor, but again, in general, in reality, you really want the armor to stay as close to your body as possible. A good armor is an armor that's right on you. The more it starts occupying an unnatural amount of space around you, the more encumbering and inconvenient it's going to be. And there's just no point in having that, really. Yes, armor has an aesthetic quality. It's a wearable work of art as well as a practical thing, I know. But, these big, pointy, sweepy out things, and it just, from a practical point of view, it makes it easier to pull you apart. I can grab that as an opponent and I can stab you in there. It's compromising the integrity of your articulated joints, which should resist separation. And yes, sometimes we make practical sacrifices for the sake of looking amazing, but it's a balance. A good armor is a balance between functionality and aesthetics. And when you go too far with aesthetics, you might go too far away from practicality. Why does that say greed to the designers? What's greedy about that? It's gaudy. Could we call it gaudy armor? It's sort of an interesting kind of red color. It's not copper, but it's not gold either. The helmet typology here is derived from jousting helms of the 15th and 16th centuries, first half of the 16th century. They've changed it a bit, so it's not really doing its job anymore, but that's where they got that helmet design. It's supposed to be for jousting. But jousting helms were never decorated with that amount of embossed and chased decoration on the top. They've gotten that from a Negroli parade helmet, you know, with the mask on the front and the human figure on the crest.
The armor description describes it as gold and metal, but not outright that it is gold. Except for the shield. Well, the shield is described as heavy. It's cast iron, clad in gold and with jewels.
They say it's cast iron?
It's described as cast iron clad in gold.
No armor or weapon is ever made out of cast iron. That's insane.
So I'm guessing it's at least for the armor, the shield is described as cast iron, but it's maybe a metal of not our reality that just happens to be golden rather than it being actual gold.
Fantasy metal.
So one of the moves you can do, I paired it with this very shiny armor, but you can do it with all of your swords. We'll see in a moment. You can hold your weapon to catch the light and blind the enemy with it.
Yeah. That's illustrated in a 15th century military manual. There's an illustration of knights fighting and the sun in the sky, and the rays of the sun are coming down, reflecting off the armor and blinding the opponent. But it's one of these clever ideas that if it works in practice, it's sort of accidental or incidental.
Yeah.
You can't rely on that.
Yeah, you'd have to be fighting with the sun at your front, which also brings its own disadvantages.
Maybe if you can get your armor to generate an Archimedes death ray, then you're onto something.
I can almost guarantee there's an armor in this game that does that.
Well, let's hope so.
It's interesting that that's got some historical precedence.
And it goes whiting.
Yeah, that's the color. That's the sound that light makes.
Sunlight hitting your axe makes that noise.
We'll ignore the fact that you can do it from any angle and indoors and underground, but
when it's cloudy as well.
When it's cloudy.
Yeah.
When it's nighttime.
Right.
But, it's a fun thing to do. If there was ever an armor set to catch light and blind an enemy, I think this one's got it in the bag. Talking more about the world again, but the atmosphere of fighting in the dark and just your own lantern, other people's lanterns, fires, it looked very cool.
The light effects, that's all really nice.
I found myself even blocking my own lantern with my shield when I was hiding behind it sometimes, sort of diluting the advantage that my own lantern was giving me.
Where is the lantern in that?
Kept on the hip.
Shame he hasn't got a hook on the shield to hang the lantern on the shield. That's a thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hang on now.
I'll handle this. Do you know what's past this gate? You can't just stroll into the castle dressed like that.
We're going to look at not the player armor, the armor of and the design of all the city guards.
Yeah.
And I've explored a couple of the cities, so we get a variety of it. Some of them have different colors, different armors, different crests, different species in some cases. I do at least like that all the city guards aren't exactly the same, that there is some variety.
Yeah, it's just the Dayglow blue. It all looks a bit like Shrek.
Speaking of Shrek.
Yeah, speaking of Shrek.
Keep your weapon sheathed and we'll get on just fine.
It doesn't look very much like a 14th century visored bassinet, but that's what this is kind of referring to, even though it's got more of a 16th century skull. These pointy visored bassinets, are kind of iconic of the late 14th century. And almost all of them had an attached defense of mail and textile to protect the neck and throat. It's distinctive of this type of helmet to have an integral defense for the neck and throat. And this game has taken that helmet and taken the distinctive neck protection away to expose the throat on purpose.
How long till the shift's over?
You're not getting away with putting a gorget on there instead. There's still an enormous gap where there shouldn't be.
I recognize those visors and helmets.
The triple barred face guards.
Yeah.
It's a pretty typical 16th, 17th century thing. They make a lot of sense. It's a good design. It doesn't really restrict your ventilation or your vision particularly, but it gives you, substantial protection, not total protection, but without having to pay very much in physical inconvenience, you get quite a lot of protection from them. And they're a design that's very long-lived. So they must have been working for people. It's just the randomness of it that bugs me here. You know, the sort of equipment of these guys is just random and all over the place. And it's not like, you know, generally with real fighting men of whatever class or whatever their job is, you know, they have defined parameters for their equipment. There's equipment that will work for the job they're doing. And there may be some variation within a typology or within a class of soldier, but their equipment usually, you know, hangs together and they all look like they're doing the same job. And one of the things that I don't like about this is it's just all over the place. And there's a gladiator helmet, there's a 13th century helmet, there's a 16th century helmet, and this for gladiators or for infantry or for heavy cavalry, and it's all just kind of thrown in there. Even in fantasy, you need some kind of rationale to tell the story well, and it's just very, very random.
What did you call it before? An armored milkshake?
Right.
Payday comes, I'm getting a proper ale. Earned that much.
Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming Dr. Capwell videos. As always, I want to give an absolutely massive shout out to all of the wonderful EXP patrons for supporting the channel and for allowing us to make this content. We've got more videos featuring Toby coming very soon, so make sure you stick around for those and let us know what else you would like to see Dr. Capwell cover in the future. Once more, I want to say thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.